What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was the Emperor of Elements, in the Avatar Part 15. Now, let's begin. Naruto's POV. The Wan Shi Tong Library located within the spirit world. What prompted me to spend all these years anticipating the solstice? Certainly, before acquiring the capabilities of that mimic, there were numerous responsibilities that no individual could manage alone. It is possible that my growth rate was already satisfactory. 2 days each year proved sufficient for significant enhancement. Additionally, the spacing between barriers allowed me to select my point of entry with precision, positioning myself directly alongside the spirits I required. I must now travel to a new location, with the hope of discovering earth spirits. For miles surrounding Wan Shi Tong's library, no dark spirits were present. The presence of the ancient spirit was sufficient to deter them, while Wan Shi Tong routinely purified the area of any audacious intruders. With a measured push from the ground, I was elevated by the surrounding air currents. From an external perspective, it appeared as though I was levitating without the application of bending techniques. I possessed sufficient understanding and control over the air to prevent the formation of significant whirlwinds. In the recent solstice, I undertook a small experiment to determine the reasons behind my ability to levitate using elements, while others were unable to do so. I remembered that during the attack on the fire sages, a portal to another plane was opened, allowing dark spirits to arrive and utilize elemental flight. During my visit to the spirit world with Yui and Katara, they successfully constructed a stable water platform for our flight. The situation proved to be more complex than I had originally anticipated. The primary reason conquerors are unable to fly in the human realm is due to the dispersed elemental particles. The energy field of the human realm exhibits a drier quality in comparison to the spirit world, resulting in particles being more widely dispersed. Developing a stable flying structure presents significant challenges. In the spirit world, this presents no challenge, due to the plentiful elemental particles. They remain in proximity. The second factor is the sensitivity to spirits, a capability that has remained with me even after reincarnation. This is the reason that I, along with other spirits and avatars in their respective states, possess the ability to fly. We actively draw particles towards us due to our ability to perceive them. After a few hours, the initial minnows emerge. Low-level fire spirits. Remaining still, I expertly maneuvered sharp air blades to cut through their bodies with precision. I did not attempt to absorb their energy, as it seemed largely futile. It resembles an Arankar intentionally pursuing weaker hollows. In summary, there is no advantage. Shortly thereafter, the initial earth spirits manifested. With unwavering momentum, I collided with the stone golem, effectively impaling it on the bone spikes that protruded from my form. At that moment, revitalizing energy from the recently dispatched mid-level spirit coursed through me. The source appeared to gradually emerge from its dormant state, however. Why was the energy of an entire mid-level spirit insufficient to elevate the source to the same level? This had consistently been effective in the past. Swiftly positioning myself next to the subsequent spirit, I decisively struck its head. It was only after the absorption of the second mid-level spirit that the source was successfully elevated by one level. If it were any other way, it would be overly simplistic, I remarked with a resigned sigh. The passing of an individual does not go unobserved. In addition to the prolonged overall weakness lasting a month, I would require 6 or 7 times the energy to progress effectively. I am curious, if Roku's body were to fail again in the future, would it require additional energy? It may be prudent to avoid testing this hypothesis. The subsequent task involved repetitive work. All entities within my sensitivity range were promptly eliminated and consumed. Excluding the lower-tier spirits, there were far too many to pursue individually. Futon. Shinku Taigoku, I announced with conviction, directing a vacuum sphere at the spirits advancing toward me. The execution was exemplary. By executing a series of hand seals, I successfully generated the technique utilizing solely my lungs and mouth. It appears I am losing my composure. I dismissed my own immaturity with a shake of my head. Today marks a significant milestone, 3 months since my transition to the spirit world. At this juncture, Roku rejoined our team. It required significant effort, and at times, it seemed as though external circumstances were working against me. Throughout the entire week, there was not a single manifestation of an earth spirit, not even a minor one. 1 week. I find that hard to believe. Fortunately, there is now a capable individual managing affairs in the Earth Kingdom. Naruto and Wan were becoming fatigued from their travels between countries. Recently, I have explored all the natural zones and can also include a few new ones that are exclusive to the spirit world. A few hundred meters behind, the taiga concluded, and now it is merely a flat desert. I discovered that there are 3 entire continents in this world. I have not reviewed Wan Shitong's publications regarding the geography of the spirit world. Indeed, there are moments when it seems as though the expanse of land is infinite. The high energy concentration is responsible for the creation of natural spatial rifts. For instance, I might be traversing a forest, vanquishing lesser dark spirits, and unexpectedly discover myself in the lair of an ancient spirit located on an entirely different continent. I have developed this idea, and now I am apprehensive about proceeding to the next phase. However, these discrepancies are typically quite apparent. They manifest as subtle lines in the expanse of space. Ultimately, I successfully maximized each element to its highest level. Progress cannot continue beyond this point. Regardless of the number of high-level spirits I eliminate, attaining the ancient level will not be straightforward. If I required assistance to attain the highest level, what implications does that have for the ancient level? Fortunately, despite this, the source continues to experience gradual growth in volume. There is a possibility of at least achieving parity with the historical levels of energy quantity. Much of the time was dedicated to sourcing the appropriate spirits. At times, for extended distances, only manifestations of a singular element are present, or merely those of lesser strength, low and mid-level. It is necessary to proceed with a longer flight, and there is no assurance that you will not come back as a result of an undetected spatial rift. Every 2 weeks, I alternated with my own bodies to ensure the steady development of my other elements. I have successfully unlocked a new ability, likely derived from the mimic. I am now capable of swapping bodies. It is uncertain where I currently find myself. When I appear in the library on this side, I find myself in his position, while he occupies mine. Subsequently, he resumes his pursuit, while I make my way back to the realm of humanity. I engaged in numerous battles. Given my minimal need for sleep, I dedicated all my time to the tasks of eliminating and assimilating. The energy channels consistently flowed, and the source remained perpetually active. Recently, my channels have thoroughly revitalized my body, restoring all aspects of my spirit. Certainly, while acknowledging their weaknesses, the positives prevail. It is pertinent to inquire about the source of spirit's speed, strength, and reaction time, as well as their overall physical capabilities. They lack musculature and vitality. However, keep in mind my initial days as a complete spirit and the insights shared by Wang. Please focus on energizing your body. This will significantly enhance your strength, agility, defense, and reaction speed, Wang advised, introducing a new exercise. As you progress, the improvement coefficient will rise, thereby passively enhancing your energy conductivity. Energy supersedes everything else. Ko possesses remarkable speed and strength, attributed to the energy coursing through his body. Exceptional energy, of an ancient standard. Neutral energy is a significant factor. I have utilized it consistently over the years, integrating it into techniques to enhance their effectiveness. However, consider what it provided me during my time in a spirit's body. As a basic low-level spirit, I have doubled my power. The initial occasion I utilized neutral energy resulted in a significant indentation, with my body's outline marked on a rock located 500 meters distant. It follows that higher-order energy would further enhance the effects. Based on my understanding, it led to an approximate 4-fold increase in all characteristics. While it may not match Ko's speed, it is still quite comparable. I should be able to anticipate his strike, although I remain uncertain about my ability to evade it. It is evident that these past 3 months have been utilized effectively. Particularly over the past 2 weeks, my presence has been driven solely by determination. I believed that I could advance to the next level through sheer determination, so I continued to absorb high-level spirits. The study of ancient civilizations remains premature for comprehensive analysis. Shortly thereafter, I became aware of a presence within my sensitivity range. 3 dark entities and 1 light entity. All at an elevated standard. Please refrain from touching my tail, hissed a retreating cat spirit, you are not welcome. Several anthropomorphic spirits, resembling fantasy orcs with pig-like features, pursued her. A bare feline creature escaping from a throng of large, menacing pig orcs. If this realm were a satire of dark fantasy adult themes, I would be fully aware of what lies ahead for this unfortunate cat. However, dark spirits lack physical attributes. Regarding the cat, I am unable to provide an assessment at this time. Her yellow-orange fur consistently conceals that area. She possesses a notable figure, with a well-defined silhouette that draws attention as she moves with grace. What a remarkable being this is. It should not be disturbed, I remarked to myself. Esteemed warrior, I humbly request your assistance, stated the girl, a blend of cheetah and human. She played a crucial role among the defenders during the assault by dark spirits on the cat spirit settlement. I have arrived, I announced confidently, embodying the role of a knight rescuing his princess. Positioned alongside the spirits, I efficiently struck their forms with a newly forged air sword. Thank you, they expressed with genuine appreciation, bowing respectfully. Upon closer inspection, they appear even larger. I hesitated. I apologize, but I find myself captivated and drawn to the desire to engage. The shape is exemplary. She possesses an appealing physical attribute. You're welcome, I responded, returning to the present moment. For a brief moment, I was genuinely captivated by your beauty, I admitted earnestly. The young woman was undeniably attractive. One should anticipate a certain standard from a spirit. However, I possess a point of reference for comparison. Thank you, she expressed, a hint of embarrassment evident in her demeanor. Do you truly believe that? She inquired with optimism. Certainly, I affirmed. Has no one else communicated this to you? Only my father and mother, she acknowledged softly. In our settlement, individuals like me are not particularly welcomed. Are you referring to yourself? Those who find it easier to walk on two legs, with bodies resembling humans, she commenced her enumeration. I was not anticipating that outcome. They fail to recognize the essence of true beauty, I asserted confidently, no longer concealing my appreciation for her physique. A flush manifested on her face, even beneath her fur. In this unusual environment, we arrived at her settlement. During the journey, she revealed her desire to pursue spirit hunting as a means to demonstrate her maturity to her overprotective father. However, it seems she was unprepared to face 3 high-level spirits within the initial hour. Fortunately, she had not wandered too far from the settlement. Is your father referred to as Kuro? Indeed, how did you come to that conclusion? She inquired with interest. I have a secret, I said with a smile. Moments ago, I realized that we have been under observation all along. It appears her father was discreetly monitoring her, illustrating the perils of the outside world. It is best to part ways now. Otherwise, there may be serious consequences. Will we have the opportunity to meet again? She inquired with optimism. The individual appears to be missing fundamental human and spiritual engagement. I believe this isolation extends beyond her appearance. The influence of her father being a powerful ancient spirit is significant. I will make an effort to visit, I said, not wanting to diminish her expectations, as I would indeed be pleased to see her again. Perhaps next time, something may be removed, but let it be. I gently petted her head, scratching behind her ear, eliciting a deeply satisfied purr. In an instant, an intense urge for violence overwhelmed me. You truly are a remarkable individual, Roku remarked as I appeared beside him, skillfully evading any consequences. I stated it myself, I responded, smiling. Ba Sing Se. The capital of the Fire Nation. The Palace of the Fire Lord. In an intimate dining room, reserved for a select few, subtle aromas of affection remained present. I observed with interest as Ursa's lips moved rhythmically while seated on my lap. Her throat had already adapted to accommodate my presence. I spoke softly, gently running my hands through her long black hair. Soon, another release occurred, bypassing her warm mouth and flowing downward immediately. I can accommodate one more instance, Ursa stated, ensuring to clean every trace of the white, viscous substance from my member. There's no need to exert yourself. I leaned in to place a gentle kiss on her forehead. In due time, your body will be prepared to nurture our child. Ursa expressed her enthusiasm to embrace motherhood once more, a genuine testament to our love. Indeed, her affection for Azula and Zuko developed over time. Kya's pregnancy taught me that a father's strength can significantly impact the mother's experience, as it requires increasing amounts of energy to support the child during gestation. If the mother possesses equal strength to the father, there would be no complications. Ursa is currently participating in an accelerated preparation course before conception. She possesses strength. Our consistent intimacy has infused her body with my vitality. However, her reserves are insignificant in comparison to Kya's, who has honed her healing skills over many years. Each day, she is required to ingest a significant quantity of my sperm, which serves as a primary source of life energy. The initial outcomes of this unconventional diet became apparent within a few days. Her hair began to grow, her hair became even more lustrous, and her skin appeared more refined. Include her lack of bending abilities, which further intensifies the strain on her life energy source. Another energy paradox arises. When a bending-capable fetus is formed in a non-bender, it appears that bending energy is converted with the assistance of life energy. Skilled healers from the Northern Water Tribe have been called to the capital of the Fire Nation. Crystals of life energy will consistently be in proximity to Ursa, enabling her to restore her reserves whenever necessary. Allow me to handle it. I observed Ursa wearily massaging her neck. I gently pushed the chair back to assist the expectant mother in getting out from under the table. I stood up and positioned my hands on her head. Ursa's wide-open mouth presented an opportunity for engagement. In the following moment, I engaged fully, finding myself once more enveloped by her warmth. Adjusting her position, I started to engage steadily and rhythmically. With each movement, her lips made contact with my groin and testicles, leaving a trace of moisture. A few minutes later, I completed my task for the 5th time that morning. While observing her condition, I noted that her body was rapidly assimilating the energy present in the semen. "It appears I will forego breakfast today," she remarked, gently patting her belly while delicately wiping the remnants from her lips. "It's not an issue. My vitality more than compensates for your meals." I assisted her in standing and then reclined on the sofa against the wall. She is required to execute multiple energy circulation cycles within her body. Shortly thereafter, the remaining family members made their way into the dining room. As Azula entered, she cast her mother an envious glance, fully aware of the typical occurrences in this setting during the mornings. May maintained her composure, though the subtle pink hue at the tips of her ears indicated her awareness of the scent present in the environment. Once you have experienced intimacy, it can be challenging to relinquish it. May persevered for an entire month. However, she ultimately approached me for additional assistance. She has become a regular presence in my office. On that particular day, Ty Lee, who is typically cheerful, did not exhibit her usual demeanor. Typically, her voice dominates the conversation at the table. Sitting with a hunched posture, she frequently glanced at Azula and me, conveying an expression reminiscent of a weary puppy. It seems that, beneath the surface, Azula possesses a certain sadistic inclination. This is evident in her tendency to share intimate details of our relationship with Ty Lee, fully aware of Ty Lee's long-standing desire for what is considered forbidden. What reasonable individual would decline the company of an attractive woman? I fully support it. However, on each occasion, various circumstances hinder our ability to cross that line. Either she has been called home with urgency, or Ko will confront me, resulting in my incapacitation. Numerous situations exist. "I will see you in your chambers tonight," I said softly to Ty Lee before departing the dining room, significantly brightening her mood. Caution. A warning regarding lemons has been issued. That evening, as I had committed, I opened the door to Ty Lee's room. Throughout the years, I have encountered numerous remarkable individuals, yet each occasion leaves me momentarily speechless. By the expansive mirror, grooming her hair, stood a remarkable figure. An ideal combination of elegance and power. A defined waist, ample and firm bust, and robust hips and thighs. Ty Lee represented all the qualities I admire. Before she had the opportunity to respond, I had already positioned myself behind her. I allowed my hands to move freely as I began to explore her expertly conditioned physique with enthusiasm. As I kissed her neck, my hand gently brushed against her damp lower lip. "I have long envisioned this moment," she stated, her voice steady yet filled with anticipation. "I have frequently envisioned you," she continued, responding to my touch with warmth. The entire night and part of the morning were fully dedicated to mutual satisfaction. Our bodies, drenched in perspiration and other secretions, ceased their dance merely 2 hours after the sun rose in the sky. This experience was truly enlightening. It is not common for me to perceive reality in fragments, but it seems that Ty Lee has stirred something within me. She appears quite fatigued. I embraced her more closely, observing her weariness. Northern Water Tribe. Katara's chambers. How can I express to my parents my affection for my brother? Pondered a striking blonde, walking thoughtfully around her friend's room. "Why must you be the one to inform them?" inquired Katara. She had observed her nearly sister in this manner on multiple occasions. In certain situations, he demonstrates a lack of courage, she gestured dismissively. Recall the number of years it took him to admit to all his other relationships? Katara acknowledged that her friend was correct. And even if your parents oppose it, will that deter you? To which Yui vigorously shook her head. Indeed, true love transcends all limitations. Katara clearly referenced someone. I require additional time. I am confident that I will devise a method to secure their approval. Katara reflected. It seems that cowardice runs in the family, not just with Naruto. It seems that in matters of love, both parties exhibit a similar level of timidity. Instead, could you share your thoughts on my outfit? Katara twirled in front of her, attempting to divert her from her serious reflections. There was a great deal to observe. The waterbender's elongated dark legs were adorned with blue stockings. Her figure, accentuated by a full C-cup, was elegantly showcased in a partially open white swimsuit. Her movements revealed portions of her areolas surrounding her nipples. Lower down, her swimsuit accentuated her figure. Mom mentioned that Naruto has a fondness for a range of stylish outfits, Katara remarked, as she opened a closet filled with an array of garments that would certainly attract a particular chief's attention. I would like to try something on as well, Yui exclaimed, her eyes brightening as she noticed a set that caught her interest. Our sizes are quite comparable. 105 years following the genocide of the air nomads. Yui Bay, Air Island Temple. Many small yet notably nimble figures moved swiftly across the verdant grass. Despite their youth, their robust legs traversed several meters in just a second. Kushi, it would be beneficial for you to practice earthbending more frequently. A girl who appeared to be around 8 or 9 years old exclaimed with enthusiasm. Her two vibrant braids complemented her sun-kissed, round face exceptionally well. RRR, Hina. A younger girl called out with a playful growl as she pursued the first. Her chestnut hair was already disheveled, her green kimono loosely draped, its sash positioned some distance away. Take this, she asserted, stamping her foot firmly, which resulted in a tall earthen wall rising before the first girl. Hina executed a seamless leap over the 2-meter obstacle with remarkable agility. People well versed in Kai would undoubtedly be impressed by the girl's skills in this area. I provided you with a complete 10 seconds. A voice announced from behind them. Before another second elapsed, an additional small conqueror surpassed the initial 2. Her movements suggested a deep familiarity with the element of air. Setting aside their long-standing rivalry, Hina and Kushi made a concerted effort to catch up with their younger sister, who was nearly at the tree. It is important to highlight that in this game, the victor is determined by the first individual to make contact with the bark of the exquisite tree cultivated by one of their mothers. Kushi and Hina, 0, Tomoko, 23, announced their peer, a contemporary of Kushi, whose features were similar to those of the other two. She possessed long black hair that cascaded gracefully onto her snow-white complexion, occasionally veiling her captivating golden eyes. I no longer wish to participate in this game, stated the middle sister, resembling a miniature version of Avatar Kyoshi. Shall we engage in some activities with Anya? Proposed the eldest, gesturing towards the impressive figure of the golden dragoness, who occupied nearly a quarter of the island. Nearby, small flying bison engaged in tranquil play. It was evident they were accustomed to having such a neighbor. Consistent location, consistent timing. Shika, would you like to join your sisters for some playtime? I leaned down to gently rest my head on the top of my daughter's head as she sat on my lap. The girl, with hair that appeared either blue or silver and small horns protruding from her head, shook her head. She then refocused her attention on consuming the fruit. I sighed to myself, making the tiny introvert feel better. Our long-awaited daughter with Gaia, like Daisy, emerged as a 3 or 4-year-old girl who already knew certain things. She was extremely calm from the beginning. She did not want to run around the library or cause any harm. She simply loved to sit and observe everyone. Soon, this hobby was supplemented by eating berries or fruits, always with a tangy kick. Shika, like Daisy, was blessed with the elements of nature, water, and earth, which allowed her to readily grow the fruits she desired. At first, I considered naming her Ganyu since she resembled a character from a game I used to play. The names Gaia offered were not even considered. She was actually worse at naming than I was. Finally, we opted for Shika, which means gentle deer in Japanese. She had the sense of being a small fawn that you just wanted to embrace. Gaia was overjoyed at her birth, as was Daisy, who had long desired a younger sister. For a week, Gaia went around like she was in a dream, never leaving Shika's side. Her actions appeared to have startled the child. Hold on, Anya, I texted her, noticing how the more energetic of my girls swarmed around her. Though swarming is too strong a word, all 3 of them together did not make up even 1% of her physique. I'm fine, father, she said lazily, continuing to soak in the sunshine. Her combat instincts had recently awakened fully. After all, dragons are not herbivores. She missed several life or death conflicts. I, and all of her other loved ones, could not provide her with what she required since she was unable to fight with her pack family. So I gave her permission to battle in the spirit world, but only near light spirit towns with at least one ancient spirit present. Of course, it's a safety net, but I still believe her judgment. Furthermore, I frequently observed her initially and must say she never took risks. My thoughts were interrupted by the tongue of the now-grown bear dog, which began licking my hands. Tail, Hina's constant companion, lacked the immense reserves of Kai that her mistress possessed, so she would come to us to rest on occasion. "Don't worry, you'll be able to keep up with everyone soon," I said, patting her smooth stomach. It was upsetting to see Balto begin to lose his youthful appearance. I wouldn't call him an old guy yet, but the years had taken their toll. I'm not sure how Naga, Korra's pet, lived so long in the show, given that these identical animals only live for roughly 15 years on average on Earth. Korra may have unconsciously impacted her with her light energy. Who knows? Even Wan Shi Tong is unaware of all the potential applications of high-order Kai. I didn't want to see my old friend go away, so I began actively researching his energy channels and source. Modest successes in this field have already occurred. All that is needed is for him to boost his Kai, which should give him an extra decade of life. My objective is to teach our healers the identical upgrade procedure, so that they may conduct it on all of the other bear dogs. The problem is that the popularity of these animals has grown again. Demand is constantly high, but supply is limited. They're gaining popularity in other countries. Not to mention the southern water tribe's protracted wait for a new batch of puppies. "Dad, Kushi and Hina are fighting again," a little air nomad dashed up to tell on her sisters. "Let them play, it will be easier to put them to bed later, but just in case, I decided to investigate what they were up to." I activated my chakras and proceeded to listen to their talk, which was interrupted only to develop new ways. "I'm the one sleeping with Dad tonight." Kushi was full of fighting energy. Her Kai channels moved fast, boosting her physical capabilities. With each subsequent stride, stone hands appeared near her opponent, attempting to grasp Hina. Younger ones must obey their elders. Hina did not back down, either. She successfully dodged and sent water blobs at her sister. Same as always, both girls are so belligerent that they frequently quarrel. Both are extremely good in intuitive Kai control and bending. Little monsters, the idea of having as many children as possible keeps entering my mind. What is the harm? They'll grow up to calmly beat up all of Dad's adversaries. Oh, dreams. Shizuka decided to name our daughter Kushi, and I did not oppose. I discovered another characteristic of mine that appeared only after the birth of my third daughter from a human mother. My offspring bear little resemblance to me, most likely because I am half-spirit. On the contrary, it appears that I locate the best in my partner's genes and amplify them further, resulting in a better version of the mother herself. I can't explain why Shizuka and I created a small version of Avatar Kyoshi. "Let's go break them up," I replied, standing up with Shika in my arms. "Good job, Tomoko." I rubbed the daughter's head as she waited for praise. "I want to be held too." She gazed enviously at Shika. I obeyed her request and began heading toward my other children. "Aang taught me a new move last time," Tomoko shared with me. She was winding Avatar Aang around her finger. How else? The girl is an airbender. Even though she appears to be a legitimate inhabitant of the Fire Nation Islands, her playful demeanor is strikingly similar to that of the Avatar. Probably because everyone grants her every wish. In the palace, Mei, Ty Lee, and Azula lavish her. Okay. Ursa and I can't always resist her begging gaze. Beyond the islands, she is always surrounded by other family members who cannot be strict with her. Ursa had trouble giving birth to her daughter. Tomoko's development required a significant amount of Kai, which Ursa just lacked. So, for 9 months, she refused to let go of the Kai crystal. However, this made her birth all the more anticipated. And, from what I understand, all of that Kai went into opening the air supply. It couldn't go unnoticed. Ursa earned numerous nice perks, including an expanded source, stronger and deeper channels, and the partial opening of airbending. In 5 to 10 years, the world will see another airbender. "Dad's coming," Kushi, who saw me first, muttered. And, when I approached them, they were already standing calmly beside each other, projecting an image of camaraderie. They appeared to have overlooked the torn-up dirt and the remaining stone hands that had sprung from the ground behind them. Shika and Tomoko gazed at their older sisters, bewildered. If they weren't misled, what about their more perceptive father? Unable to bear my severe glare, which I had kept from my virtual existence as a shelter caregiver, they swiftly said. She started it, they said, pointing at each other. I set Shika and Tomoko on the ground and gently approached the terrified females. They closed their eyes and anticipated the impending hug. Now I get to cuddle my little delicious babies. I softly pressed them against me. Stop it. I've already grown up. Hina barely fought our devotion. She enjoyed appearing like she was in control, and my actions clearly undermined her authority. Yeah, me too. Kushi, the little copycat, didn't want to fall behind her sister and started emulating Hina's conduct. After fulfilling my craving, I brought all of my girls to the new air temple. It was time for them to eat. The entire island has undergone alteration. Even the most meticulous aristocrat would not hesitate to live here. A whole complex of buildings caters to every want. There are hot springs, a training center, a pier, a plaza for various events, and a modest, gorgeous garden. The list goes on. I frequently assemble all of my children here to give their mothers some much-needed rest. It's best if they learn early on that their father has other partners with children. In this manner, they may immediately get along with each other without categorizing their sisters into biological and non-biological. I now only employ my Raku, Wan, and Yo personas when I'm with strangers, or in public. Within my family circle, I've decided to be only my true form, the one I received at birth from the Northern Water Tribe. My women insisted on seeing only the real me. After several hours of playing with the kids, I started preparing them for bedtime. First, a small snack. Their ravenous stomachs wouldn't let them rest. Then came the required bath, which, as always, evolved into a water battle. Finally, a quick bedtime story and kisses on the foreheads. It's hard being a father to many. It's a good thing I have a lot of Kai, because if I didn't, the girls would drain all of my energy in 1 hour. After ensuring that everyone was sleeping, I, surrounded by 4 small bodies, fell asleep as well. Yui Bay. The city of Tianhai. A large crowd moved along the cobblestone path, which was lined with new 6- and 7-story structures. A large family went by, their attire dominated by green and scarlet colors, a strong indication that both parents were from different countries. The youngest member of the family almost collided with a tanned beauty whose gorgeous form was hidden by the Water Tribe's customary blue clothing. Please forgive my son, his mother said, pulling him closer. I told you not to run around like that, she said severely. It's nothing, I was too absorbed in my book, the girl said nervously, waving one hand while holding a book firmly in the other. To some, this conversation may appear unimportant, but not for those who had watched the city's evolution since its founding. Tianhai residents have clearly broadened their minds. Over the last year, the streets were no longer crowded with wary groups of people waiting for some trick. After all, people from other nations walked alongside them. That was what everyone thought. As time went by, people became used to living next to their old foes. It's impossible to stay the same when you encounter people with varied facial traits every day, and those features don't belong to your race. When you work with them in the same place. When your kids don't care about your biases and just make friends and play together. Sooner or later, you understand a simple truth that you had been missing for a long time. They're just like you. They feel the same concerns, worries, joys, and sadness. The only big difference between you two is where you were born. Fresh newspapers for sale. The latest news. A boy yelled, standing next to an open crate of newspapers. His fine clothes weren't right for his job, unless you knew he was the son of one of the city's biggest printing press owners. The second wave of settlers felt the busy life here. They said that this metropolis seemed to live far faster than the capitals of the Earth Kingdom and the Fire Nation. There were always more than enough news stories because things happened every day. There was a huge number on the front page of today's newspaper, 500,000. In only 1 year, Tianhai's population had surged to 500,000, and every month, the number of new people kept going up. The population would soon approach 1 million. A man who had just bought a newspaper from the youngster said, "Damn the triad." There was a full-width picture of an older man with gray hair on the second page. This was obvious evidence of his age. His golden eyes made it clear that he was from the Fire Nation. He kept reading. A reward is offered for any information about the leader of the Triple Threat Triad. A month ago, a gang led by the firebender Lightning Zolt started causing trouble in the city. They did all kinds of bad things and were smart enough to stay out of trouble with the cops. They could easily scare small and medium-sized enterprises because they had strong earthbenders, waterbenders, and firebenders on their side. They made a lot of money by not even thinking twice about kidnapping the families of their victims. The third page had pictures of other people who looked like bandits. People were told not to confront these people but to call the police right away. In addition to the leader, their crew featured other unknown masters of their elements. Viper, Zolt's primary aide and a competent waterbender. Tokuga, a teenage martial arts master. Two-Finger Ping, a firebender. And Mushi, a weak earthbender who made up for it with his huge strength. These were only the most well-known members of the triad. Others of their names were not known. "Now these are people who should teach us about friendship between countries," said an anonymous reader, who was also a plainclothes officer bored of hearing his employer talk about the case of the infamous triad that wasn't going anywhere. See how quickly they got along. It looks like the rich Zan Su bought the next 5 pages again. She had a cosmetics company, but she wanted to engage in medicines, therefore she was looking for skilled medical specialists. Some of her treatments had only started to show up in regular hospitals, but there weren't many of those yet. People still trusted waterbenders more. You knew they would do everything they could to save your life, even though it cost more. "Sell another one," the officer who was looking into the case said as he gave the newspaper back. He then hurriedly walked toward the road, where a never-ending stream of carriages driven by animals moved. There were goat deer from the North Pole, Komodo rhinos from the Fire Nation Islands, camel elephants from the driest places, and a lot of ostrich horses and hound eels. Only small carriages that carried people were allowed along the borders of the road, where people walked. In the middle, only goods carriers traveled, and they were frequently hauled by very big animals. Nolan, our officer, stated, "Intersection of E20 and O5. People had to deal with confusing numbers because many streets still didn't have names." He threw a silver coin and said, "Keep the change." "The fare is exactly 1 silver, the driver replied in a monotone voice. But Nolan saw the brief look of disdain in the man's eyes. When did everything get so expensive? Nolan thought to himself as he turned away. He looked at 2 tall towers. He had once been on the roof of one of the skyscrapers. Looking down, he knew he hadn't made a mistake relocating here. What other city could have buildings like these? Where else might people from different countries live together in peace? Not just him, but a lot of other people probably felt that they were part of something great at times. Tianhai. It sounds like a proud name. This is where a lot of money moves around. Businesses don't have room for things from all around the world, and the ports are always getting new trade ships. Nolan vowed to himself, "I have to do my job even better." Soon, a 3rd skyscraper would be finished. It was supposed to be much taller than the previous 2. From where it was easy to see how the builders worked at height, with the green crystal steadily rising under their hands. Later, Nolan ended up in a neighborhood that wasn't as nice. The government wasn't stopping people from making their lives better. No, he thought that they were given and paid large amounts of money. Employment officers came around a lot, but it didn't help. You can't make someone leave the slums if they don't want to. He felt worse for the innocent kids who didn't choose where to be born. He had received an anonymous letter the day before saying that the group he was looking for was in this region. He felt more sure of himself as he touched his taser, which was the newest thing. He wasn't good at bending, but he thought technology would help him win. Also, he wasn't dumb enough to take on strong benders by himself. There were always a few strike squads ready to get to the crime scene swiftly. He carefully strained his hearing to listen to the talks of the inhabitants from the shadows of rundown dwellings. "Have you seen Karu? He owes me money for a week now," Nolan said. He was already sick of these useless drunks talking. His drinking companion murmured, "He's probably not going to pay you back." The detective's professional instincts kicked in right away. "Did he go or something?" The first one said. "He's, The other person said very gently. "What? They took him out," they said in a low voice. Nolan's interest became even greater. It seems that the debtor's body was located outside the city, well roasted. People say that lightning was definitely involved. Nolan thought, Lightning Zolt loves to punish people who do wrong with his lightning. "Okay. I need the 7th house." He saw one of the triad's recruiters and murmured to himself, "Dark Shin." The man, who was keeping a close eye on his surroundings, walked inside the very residence that Nolan wanted. It's time they paid for what they did. He immediately made his way to the other end of the street. A few minutes later, he was standing next to the wall of a plain shack, one of hundreds in the area. Somewhere here. He hurriedly ran his fingertips over the bricks. Got it. He located the proper brick. He carefully took it off and showed a little button. He leaned silently against the wall and checked his firearm. Now all that's left is to wait. There were concealed buttons, or distress signals, in practically every part of the metropolis. They were all directly connected to headquarters. Several actual fighters would show up in 5 to 10 minutes with striking teams. There was a medium-sized airship in the sky 6 minutes later. Nolan ran out into the open area of the street at that point and began to gesture with his fingers. 7 and a few more signs. He wasn't afraid of being noticed because there was always someone on board with binoculars watching the area. No one could hit the button by mistake. Hopefully, they won't cook me today, he thought. The healers were already making fun of him. He always ran into a criminal who could bend fire. To be honest, a bad tendency was starting to show up. He ran closer to the home, disregarding the loud shouts of the people who lived there. He noticed individuals in military uniforms coming down ropes from the airship. At that point, time moved faster. Some members of the triad had already left the house and were attacking the people who were coming down with stones, fire, and water. He yelled, "I'm here." Why couldn't he ever stay still? He had already aimed his taser at the most unruly bender. "One down," the rebellious earthbender said as he fell to the ground. "1 for electricity, 0 for people. Jen, take care of this," the team leader said as he appeared, giving orders right away and making his favorite lightning. Nolan murmured to himself as he watched the old guy walk calmly toward him. Jen, a dangerous criminal who started his career as a teenager. "I used to cause a lot of trouble on my home islands," Jen said with a sneer as he shoved his palms forward, blasting streams of flame toward Nolan. Another firebender, Nolan thought as he gave up his jacket, which took most of the flames. Nolan kept shooting at his opponent, who was way too quick for a bender, without wasting any bullets. "I had no control over fire until I was 16, so I toughened myself up with physical training," Jen remarked, as if she could read Nolan's mind. "Looks like our duel is over," as Nolan's strange weapon stopped shooting hazardous projectiles. Nolan smiled as he saw the last resistance, the Triad commander, being detained. "I don't need it anymore," he said. "Good work, Nolan," exclaimed a big man who easily held Jen down. "Trying my best," Nolan said tiredly, waving his left hand. He could feel the pain in his right hand where the firebender had hit him. Hello again, dear beige walls of the healing chambers," he said with a sigh. A lot of people had come to the registration station in Tianhai. There were usually a lot of people here since they knew which way the winds were blowing and wanted to become citizens of this city. "Finally, a real shower, right Yakwan?" a sexy black-haired woman said, her voice making a lot of males nearby feel uneasy. "Yeah," Yakwan said, without caring, and looked back. His other friends were well hidden in the crowd. He had met a lot of people who thought like him when he was traveling. It looked like fate had brought them all together. His first and most faithful friend stood next to him. 3 years ago, he stopped her from being raped by a group of earthbenders. She knew what would happen to her because she grew up in a brothel, but knowing and accepting were not the same thing. Also, she hadn't even had her first period yet. If it weren't for a waterbender who, for some reason, had been drawn to her location, she would have been used as a toy. Yakwan thought confidently, "This is the center of the world. This is where our movement will start in the future." He also thought he might meet new friends here, the Northern Water Tribe. Oasis of the Spirit, Naruto. I frowned a little and rubbed my temples. My head will hurt for a few more days. I knew it wouldn't help the throbbing agony. It wasn't my body or even my energies that hurt, it was something deeper. My nude body gently came out of the company of the old spirits of the moon and ocean, with my hands supporting it. It had been almost a week since I had moved Tui and lay a little bit in their pond. I had been spending half of my time here for almost 2 years. All of this has a cause. It turned out that killing and absorbing dark spirits didn't help me get better at waterbending, as I had thought. So, once again, I asked the spirits for help. I cultivate these very old fish for a week or 2 every month. Our first full union put me in a coma for 2 days. I guess I should have known. My body and soul just weren't equipped to understand how the spirits talked to each other. There were further problems that came up. It wasn't easy to get a strength boost from stronger spirits. No, I was pleased to get a piece of understanding, not information. Of course, over time, I was able to absorb more and more beneficial things through my Kai. But all of this is merely fuel to help me break through. The true progress has to come from me. During our 3-way union, our minds and hearts open up. That's when I understood how boring their lives must be. I can sometimes see parts of their past. From those glances, I learned that they took on human forms thousands of years ago to teach the water tribe how to master their powers. They started teaching others how to bend water while looking like a white-haired woman who looked a lot like Yui and a dark-skinned, older man. They were just curious about what other species could do with their element. They got results they didn't expect after a while. Their own imagination helped them move their own development forward a little bit. A person's memory and lifespan are both brief. The spirits turned into fish when they got tired of living with people. People remembered their donors for a time. But as time went on, fewer and fewer people knew this. After a few generations, everyone forgot about the past, but they still respected the ghosts. It's possible that they forgot what the ghosts looked like. But one thing was clear, Chui and La had taught them how to bend. I felt a little sad for the ghosts that were still swimming pleasantly. I'm even more tormented by the fact that I'm going to end up like them. Through their thoughts, I realized that they have been stuck against an invisible wall for a long time. The laws of the world don't allow other great spirits to ascend to the level of Rava and Vadu. The elements of light, harmony, order, darkness, and chaos are at the summit of a pyramid-like hierarchy. The four main bending arts are below them. Firebending will never be stronger than darkness. I assume that if it were, the world would break, because this cosmos is formed on the fight between Rava's and Vadu's forces. Along with the main four elements, fire, earth, water, and air, many additional elements are just as important, such as fear, knowledge, and others. There is also life energy, although it is not classified. I might not know everything yet, but for now, I'll stay with this theory. I'll think about it later. I just need to get to the ancient level in the next few years. It doesn't make me feel good to know that Ko will achieve his pinnacle in roughly a year. I can't stay hidden under Wan Shi Tong's wing forever. I need to get this situation fixed for good. My other bodies aren't just sitting around either, they're all working hard to learn how to bend. One of them might break through. I don't want to go back to the palace, but Mom hasn't been giving out a lot of bad vibes recently. A month ago, Palace of the Chief, Naruto. The confines of home could be too much at times. I wasn't the only one who was nervous. My sister's little hand held mine strongly. I scolded myself for not paying attention, saying, "There you go, a real family member." Yui's shoulders shook a little, showing that she was worried. She wasn't sure where to go, and tears filled her eyes. I lifted her chin so she would only look at me. "Yui," I murmured as gently as I could, "even if our parents don't like our relationship, I'll never stop loving you." Then I pulled her close. We had finally made up our minds to tell our parents how we felt about each other today. Yui and I respect our parents, therefore we didn't want to take the next step in our relationship. But you can't stay hidden forever. It's best to get everything out in the open now. Brother, I love you too. Yui shouted with all her heart, sending chills down my spine. The things she said sounded so strange. She shook aside her doubts and aggressively reached for a kiss. I did the same thing after making sure no one was nearby. For the next several minutes, our tongues fought in a battle. My hands eagerly probed her beautiful, sexy body. I thought, I'll never stop loving these sweet buns, as my hands held onto her back. I agree with you, I said. At this rate, we'll never get to our parents. We got ourselves together and got ready for the hard talk. Or at least we thought so. We saw our parents drinking tea. As soon as we entered the threshold, Yui hurriedly hid behind me. "Looks like I'll be the one taking the heat," I said with a big sigh. It seemed like I was asking my parents for permission to marry, but they were my own. Incest is hard. Mom, Dad, I was able to calm down by the second word. I took Yui's hand and said, "We wanted to tell you something. To be honest, I'm also scared and need some help. I've fully accepted my parents in this life, therefore I don't want to let them down. People who care about you, love you, and offer you their time without expecting anything in return are hard to dislike." Dad said, "It feels strange here." My voice got a little louder with nerves. "Yui and I love each other. A little more than family," I said in a hushed voice. Dad probably shouldn't have taken that sip of tea. It spilled on the table before it even got to his mouth. Mom's cup broke loudly on the floor. Did I hear that right, dear?" Dad inquired in a sad voice. "No," Mom said sharply, her breath thick. Once they understood what was going on, they talked for hours. Jun had cried on Arnook's shoulder before. Dad would give us lectures about how not to make mistakes. Our parents tried not to put too much pressure on us, but that didn't work, and Yui started to exhibit her anger. Mom said, "I thought your too close relationship would fade over time." I had to explain my connection to Yui, which was the only thing I could do. There is one, though. But I don't want to feel like someone else is loving my sister at night. I've shown you my other daughters. I started to push them with information they couldn't deny. Every single one looks like their mother. From what I've learned, my genes adapt to women, finding the best in them and adding to it with my own to make a better version of the mothers. My remarks helped them feel a little better. The Northern Water Tribe had seen incidents of kids being born with problems in the past. Most of the time, these happened when tribes were at war, when land was firmly divided, and interactions with neighbors were short, frequently ending with an arrow in the skull or too much ice in the body. Back then, no one intentionally practiced close kinship, but because there were no new members for generations, tribal members became family. This was one reason why tribes started to get along better. To stay out of trouble, they started trading women with each other. But this made women's rights weaker. There are always consequences for every choice. Okay, do you have anything else to say? Dad inquired in a calm voice. If I know him well, he doesn't mind that we're together. He merely wants what's best for his daughter. Her brother, who has taken care of her since she was a child, loves her more than anyone else. Yes, I said, taking a break to drink some water. Our children can't be unhealthy because we have so much life energy. It just won't let them. By the end of the talk, we had convinced Dad that there were no hazards. But Mom still wasn't happy with what I said, so we fought more over the next few days. I shamelessly ran away to Tui-in-law's spirits, deciding to wait till Jun calmed down. Yui did the same thing and moved to her flat in the city center. The spirit world, cursed lands. A huge beast made entirely of red flames walked across the black, dead earth. Its huge body looked like a compacted flame. It was clear from the dark spirits that died when they got too close. Agni, the old light spirit of fire, didn't even have to do anything. Anyone less developed than him couldn't take his heat. A small person walked quietly next to the spirit and stated, "You know, you look more like an anime mech than a spirit." His long white hair fell to his waist, and his deep purple eyes looked at the spirit with joy. Agni did look like a big robot, though. His body looked like it had been put together by a constructor, and it had a lot of features that were not real. "Are you sure you didn't run away from the Shaman King world?" "I'm a spirit," Agni nearly growled. This poor soul had been dealing with this half-spirit for a whole week. "And no, I don't know any how Asakura." He kept going, not giving Naruto a chance to say anything. "Oh, Rava, why did you have to send this creature my way?" Agni thought to himself, feeling a bit overwhelmed. He was helping out. He's there for his fellow spirits, helping them handle those wild ones. "Have you given any thought to what we talked about last time?" Naruto asked, glancing away and fidgeting a bit. "I'm not going to unite with you," the spirit yelled, putting all the force he could muster into his voice, even though he didn't have any lungs. "I'm a guy. Stop twisting my words," Naruto said, pretending to be outraged. "I enjoy teasing this ancient spirit," he chuckled to himself. From what he understood, Agni's fiery personality meant he couldn't quite keep his emotions in check, which made every reaction truly priceless. "I mentioned it before, but Tui and La have already dealt with this. I'm done talking to those perverts for good," Agni declared, a hint of fear creeping in. Even ancient spirits could be affected. He suddenly thought, he had to get moving. Right now. Hold on. Don't just run off. The creature, maybe even more terrifying than Vadu, called out as it chased after him. "Just leave me alone. It's not every day you see one of the strongest ancient spirits running away from a higher spirit." Tianhai City. Have you heard of Yui Bay? In the evening, the whole city sparkled with artificial lights, making sure that life kept going strong even after dark. But tonight, the brightest glow was coming from the bay, where this huge oval building was perched on the water, held up by pillars. The whole structure looked like it was made of gold. At its peak, there was this huge glass dome that let in all that lovely natural sunlight during the day. It seemed like something a rich tycoon would put together as a palace. So, once it was all done, folks found out it was the Bender Tournament Arena, created by architects with some pretty wild ideas. When Naruto saw the finished building up close, he was blown away by the Golden Temple. In the arena, another tournament was happening with two finalist teams going head-to-head. The main hall was buzzing with spectators filling the tiered stands. Everyone was super excited for this event, and all the tickets were gone in just 2 days. Honestly, is there anything better than a classic Kai brawl? In the middle, there was a hexagonal platform with 6 participants standing on it. On the right side, there were young women with fit figures, definitely no strangers to working out, getting in their warm-up. Their opponents were different. Middle-aged guys in snug green uniforms, with their bellies peeking out from underneath. They were blowing air kisses to their fans, can you believe it? This team actually had fans. In just a few months, they'd probably be forgotten since the competition keeps getting tougher. The arena had only been open for about 6.5 months, but the upcoming season is set to welcome a lot more new teams. In this place, being a talented bender isn't the only thing that matters. You've got to have some charm too, or at least be young and attractive. They always manage to win hearts. Underneath the platform, there was a big, deep pool where the defeated participants would land, and waterbenders could pull their element from it. The platform featured 21 holes. These were templates for large, coin-shaped discs that earthbenders utilized during battles. The holes got packed with quick-setting clay, which is softer than stone but still makes a difference. The arena's air circulation system made sure firebenders could keep their edge without worrying about running low on oxygen. Just past the battle hall, there were training rooms filled with all the gear you'd need, making it easy for everyone to sharpen their skills. The arena had some living spaces for the staff who worked there full-time. The costumes worn by the participants stood out and were quite impressive. They were only outdone by military and police gear. The unique fabric stood up to fire, shielded against clay hits, and kept injuries at bay from strong water streams. It helped improve resistance to bending and physical damage. The helmets turned out to be even more dependable, otherwise, we'd have to find new benders every round to swap out the injured ones. And we're back, everyone. It's me, your forever commentator, Shiro. A vibrant male voice echoed throughout the arena. Tonight, get ready for a real spectacle. It's going to be an unforgettable experience. What we've all been anticipating is finally here, right in front of us. The ultimate showdown will determine who walks away with the champion's belt. And, of course, a whole lot of sponsorships and some serious cash. The last part was meant to be a whisper, but the crowd caught it, bursting into laughter. Over on the right, we have a team that nobody thought would make it this far, but look at them now, and those bellies are still jiggling. Shiro knew how to get the crowd going. Absolutely. The over 40 guys. Oh wait, I might have mixed up the script, it's the Timber Toads. The crowd seemed to respond even more to, over 40 guys, experience is on our side. The Toad leader exclaimed with a big smile, full of enthusiasm. Age doesn't equal experience, someone in the crowd shot back, sparking a burst of laughter. That was the charm of the Toads. They adjusted fast to the crowd. If folks enjoy having a good laugh at their expense, then why not go for it? Being popular brought in cash from advertisers. Because of this strategy, they're already able to retire and enjoy a comfortable life right in the city center. But the more you eat, the hungrier you get. They weren't just looking for comfort, they wanted the whole package. Especially since a big part of their income came from winning battles. On the left, we have 3 amazing conquerors, each representing a man's dream. It was quite the mix. A confident woman with beautiful curves, a spirited young girl, and an elegant aristocrat with a cool attitude. I can already see some guys getting a bit hyped. I know what you're thinking, you cheeky ones. But those outfits, not so easy to rip apart. They're a collaboration from the top talents of the Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom. Since the event was for those over 18, the risque jokes landed well. Also, helmets or gloves would occasionally come undone. The arena's white hexagonal floor had already seen its share of blood, turning it red more than once. Team Violet Pentapooses. So, for anyone who might not be in the loop, these little guys are hanging out in the sewers of Omashu. They've got suckers that can stick to you pretty much for good. Thankfully, no one has actually died from them, but trust me, your skin won't appreciate the gunk they come with. Kind of a weird pick for beautiful girls, huh? Just a heads up. They'll grab on and won't want to let go, he said with a knowing smile. Okay, I get it, you're not here just to hear me talk. So, let's quickly cover the basics. We can't skip this part. The bosses are pretty strict about it. No flashy moves, just finesse and skill are what matter. And remember, no headshots, even if it's super tempting. Also, no combining elements. If a fighter gets seriously hurt, they're out, and there are no replacements allowed. Shiro said, almost in one breath. Ref, let's kick off the first round. In just a few seconds, the air was filled with clay discs, fireballs, and streams of water. The Timber Toads had this clever strategy called 3-on-1. Basically, they all teamed up to focus their attacks on a single opponent while making sure to watch out for each other. Once they took one out, they'd go after the next one until they won. The Pentapooses had a unique approach. Each girl would zero in on one opponent and then suddenly change targets, catching them off guard to take them out. So, there's this new scheme they came up with called the stopwatch. The team figured out when to make the switch ahead of time, so the trick was just to keep counting in their heads. It felt like having these tactics would make it a breeze to take down the opposition. But when you're in the thick of it, you can't afford to waste a single second. It's 1-1. The third round is going to be the big decider for who gets to live a life of luxury for themselves and their family. Shiro's voice rang out again and again. In the third round, it was clear that both teams had saved up their energy, and now they were letting loose with a flurry of moves. In just a minute, it was only the team leaders left on the platform. With just 2 minutes to go in the round, both benders kept their pace, showing everyone they were more than just faces on screen. They were the real deal, top-tier benders. Toads, keep an eye on your surroundings. The commentator cautioned as one guy found himself stuck to the floor by little puddles. And victory for the suckers. Just like we thought, the Toad leader was quickly sent swimming in the pool. Once the quick award ceremony wrapped up and both teams had their say, we jumped right into the second, unplanned, part of the program. Everyone, hold on a second, we're not finished yet, let's give a warm welcome to some special guests. Shiro could feel the sweat on his forehead. He was nervous about saying something wrong with his two bosses up there on stage. Let me introduce you to Toph Beifong. She's the proud daughter of the heavens and learned earthbending from Kings Bumi and Roku. At first glance, Toph seemed just the same. But when I took a closer look, I noticed some areas had definitely rounded out, and she had grown a few centimeters taller. It was obvious that Toph had moved past her teenage years and had blossomed into a woman in her prime. And over here, we have Suki. She's the warrior of Kyoshi, an amazing earthbender, and yes, another student of Master Roku. But Suki, she was just as she always was, her body having hit its peak condition years back. As long as nothing unexpected happens, she'd be like this for years. Her life energy made sure of that. What brought them here? It's pretty straightforward. The arena was theirs. They figured that a showdown between two famous masters would help their business take off. Naruto had offered his women the opportunity to invest in something that truly mattered to them. Luckily, they had all managed to save up enough by that time. The crowd was super excited to see the Earth King's daughter and a well-known Kyoshi warrior famous for her metal-bending skills. Alright, that's it, no more delays, Shiro said with determination. The quicker we get going, the quicker we wrap this up, Toph said with a grin, sending a bunch of discs flying into the sky. Eager to lose? Suki asked, a playful tone in her voice. Toph didn't say anything else. She just started launching one projectile after another. Suki's discs perfectly deflected every attack that came her way. The fight was all about clay discs, which pushed them to think outside the box. You know, looking at this, the finalists, battle feels like a walk in the park, one spectator said to his neighbor, giving a nod towards the platform. Take it easy. Not many people can pull off that kind of skill, and they're all linked to Roku and Bumi, the older man said, his eyes shining with admiration and respect for the fighters. In the meantime, the arena staff were super busy, barely getting a moment to catch their breath, as the clay was disappearing at an unbelievable rate. Suki, not wanting to back down, chose to stir things up with Toph. She understood that when Toph was angry, she was a bit reckless. She can always say sorry later. Toph, how are your hands doing? I bet you've been putting in some serious work, right? She teased, pleased that the loud crowd masked their chat. What do you mean by that? Toph frowned, already sensing what her friend and rival was getting at. Seriously, it's been 2 years, and you're still in the same place, just using your hands on him. Mind your own business. Toph shot back. She was frustrated with her own hang-ups that held her back from being close with her beloved. We'll make it, just not in a wet cave. She replied. Sure, whatever you say, Suki said with a smirk, feeling like victory was just around the corner for her. But Suki forgot that Toph wasn't just a little girl anymore who couldn't handle her feelings. A minute later, Suki was all in, completely submerged in the chilly water. They reached their goal. The arena was super popular, so they needed to expand. There just wouldn't be enough seats for everyone. Air Island Temple. Hina, you silly, Kushi sang a little tune she had just created. As she walked by the kitchen, she noticed a half-eaten lemon pastry, which was her sister Shiki's favorite. She looked around carefully and then made her way over to the treat. As she was about to grab the plate, a cold, girlish voice chimed in from behind her. Mine. I swear, I didn't touch anything, Kushi said, nervously avoiding Shiki's stunning yet cold stare. Shiki's scary. That's why even Hina and Tomoko were afraid to touch her. Shiki just ignored Kushi and casually hopped up onto a tall stool, making sure to set a few soft cushions on it first. This is so good, she said as she took a bite of the pastry. Just missing Dad's knees. In a place known as the Spirit Realm. So, there's this fire lily that's almost 7,000 years old. And then there's a chin chinks that's 6,000 years old too. Plus, we've got a moon lily that's 5,000 years old. That just leaves the ginseng. It felt like I had stumbled into a world of Kai blockers. But luckily, that wasn't what happened. So, the list I mentioned earlier is just the plants I need to collect to get my 6th chakra going. Sure, I'd need to soak in a hot bath filled with the amazing benefits of these ancient plants. I initially thought I could just get my ladies to whip up these plants for me, but it ended up being way more complicated than I expected. I was looking for plants that have been around for thousands of years, filled with spiritual energy for ages. The older they got, the more impressive the effect became. The energy they have would kind of poison my body, pushing me to a whole new level. Each of the 4 plants had a special meaning. The fire lily was all about firebending, Chinchinks was linked to airbending, the moon lily was for waterbending, and ginseng represented earthbending. You know what's hilarious? I had to toss them into the water following the avatar cycle. Fire, air, water, earth. How quirky is that? There was definitely something special about it, even if I didn't quite get it at the time. We were finally wrapping up our month-long search for these plants. They were tough to find, kind of like searching for a needle in a haystack. Sure, you could take a shortcut with the needle, but that meant trekking out to some far-off spots, and honestly, there was just a slim chance of actually finding what I was after. Well, there were definitely some spots where they could be found, but that would mean having to deal with ancient spirits. Their habitats had a ton of elemental particles, so it boosted my chances of finding something from my list. I got the Chinchinks for free because it was just growing all over the place near the home of the great master of air currents. I didn't get along with the other ancient spirits, so they wanted something back that was just as valuable. So, what do you think I could bring to the table? By human standards, I was almost like an emperor, but it was obvious they didn't care for human trinkets. Oh, and you know what? These plants, filled with spiritual energy, were a go-to snack for both light and dark spirits. They soaked up the energy, which pushed their development ahead. Even higher spirits required plants that were at least 1,000 years old, not to mention the ancients. Typically, if someone saw them, they'd just gobble them up right away. It was nice to see that my chakra development was moving along smoothly, without any hiccups. Maybe once the 6th chakra opens, I'll get a chance to connect, even just a little, with the power of ancient spirits. There was this time when Van Shitong and I chatted about how my open chakras matched up with spirit ranks. So, here's the deal. The first chakra helped me tackle those weak lower spirits, the second one stepped things up for the stronger lower spirits, the third got me on the same level as the weak mid-level spirits, the fourth matched me with the strong mid-level spirits, and the fifth. Well, that one took me all the way to the top rank. So, in theory, the sixth should get my body ready to take on a weak ancient spirit. Chakra power does grow at an incredible rate, doesn't it? So, what about the seventh chakra? For sure, I could handle the top tier of the spirit world. I shook off my thoughts and made my way to the part of the forest where the ginseng could be found. First, I had to handle the sentient beings that were just going to be a distraction. As those slicing air currents kept coming at me, I quickly got tired of trying to fend them off. I had way more important things to focus on. There were just way too many of them around, like the whole place was slathered in some kind of spiritual honey. I had promised myself to avoid using big techniques in places where the plants could be. So, just a week back, one of my moves ended up wrecking a moon lily. Luckily, there was another one close by. Oh, I just figured it out. My long hair suddenly felt so much thicker and fuller, and in no time, it started shooting out these thin but super sharp strands. These strands could pierce through even mid-level spirits since they were just bursting with life energy. For a boost in spirits, the hair turned into huge jaws that easily crushed those particularly stubborn ones. I was still figuring out how to unlock the potential of the fifth chakra. Guess what? I can pull off Jiraiya's hairstyle, just like he does. While I was sparring with Van Shitong, it hit me that having a body covered in hair could help lessen the damage I take. Also, I had a blast taking charge of my hair, feeling like a total Otsutsuki. I spent the next hour wandering through the forest, on the lookout for ginseng, while my hair kept soaking any spirits that ventured too near. I plopped down on a stump, feeling a bit down and just lost in my thoughts. Looks like the last ingredient is missing. It was just like all the other 50 places I'd been to before. I could keep looking, but something inside me said I wouldn't find it out in the open. You know, I've always wanted to check out an ancient spirit's lair, I thought, feeling even worse. So, I took a deep breath and made up my mind to do something about it. Who would have thought the gateway to the sixth chakra would open like that? I could use the plants as soon as tomorrow. I said, rolling my eyes at the clueless spirits still coming at me. They won't even get a piece of me. I gave my wrist a little twist, and suddenly, a tiny air vortex popped up next to me. I was done holding back with this place, so it was time for a big change. The vortex quickly got bigger and faster. Before long, the technique easily took care of the spirits around here. So, there I was, hanging out in that in-between space of worlds. I can't believe I didn't think of traveling like this earlier. It was awesome. So, you started off here, and from there, you could show up just about anywhere in the spirit realm. I just stumbled upon this travel method about 3 weeks ago after I was completely worn out from hunting for plants. Not here, that spot is way too risky. I spent a good 30 minutes weighing my options on where to show up near an ancient spirit. It was a tough choice. My life might be on the line here. I quickly decided that strong signatures were off the table, there was just no way that would work. So, that just left us with 2 spirits that weren't all that strong to pick from. In a situation like this, I just couldn't trust my gut feeling. We've made a decision. I'd take a careful look at both options. When I got to the slope of the mountain, it hit me right away that for miles around, it was just me and the spirit of the place. The eerie quiet was unsettling. On top of that, I could feel the spirit's focus on me growing stronger. See ya, I disappeared in a flash. They quickly turned this option down. The spirit was not just awake, but also super alert. I don't think I can make this happen. The spot close to the second spirit's home was a bit safer. One great thing was that the energy around me felt free from that Vadu vibe. So, I ended up close to this rare dark spirit that hadn't been touched by Vadu yet. How cool is that? It felt like the spirit was either catching some Z's or deep in thought, because the energy was just so calm. Feels a bit too static. So, I started to lower all my energy signatures. I didn't even hold back my life force. I had to be super sneaky. Honestly, I'd love to just be like an everyday, regular person without any bending abilities. So, that way, the ancient spirit would be unaware of any danger. It felt just like a gnat buzzing around your kitchen. Yeah, it's there, but it's not a big deal for you. If it bothers you, you'd just swat it away, but it's not a huge deal. Fingers crossed, the spirit feels the same way. I crossed my fingers and whispered a quick prayer as I stepped into the dark cave, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. The spirit's presence was definitely strongest there. Little by little, I ventured further in. I was so nervous about sweating, even though I wanted to, ginseng. After walking about 50 meters, I could sense exactly what I was after. Wow, look at all this ancient ginseng, I said to myself. I peeked around the corner, and wow, there was a whole field of ginseng flowers. Well, the difficulty just cranked up to deadly. At the end of the space, there was this huge stone tick waiting. I couldn't think of anything else when I saw it. I've come across a lot of these pesky little skin-burrowing critters before. I could never forget them. Just grab one and let's go. I pushed my greed aside. Fortunately, they were all quite elderly. Anyone would work. I slowly lay on the ground and started pulling myself toward the field. My eyes were fixated on the spirit. So far, it has not moved. Soon, the first volunteer for relocation was within arm's reach. I gently retreated around the corner, carefully digging it up beside the earth. One eye never ceased looking at the spirit. At least I didn't mess up here, I thought as I approached the cave's thin stone wall. But just as I'd covered half of the distance, a roar resonated from the cave's depths. "R-O-O-O-O-A-R. Greedy me," I exclaimed without hesitation, activating all of my energy sources and chakras. The next second, I exploded out of the cave like a champagne cork. Another second later, I was outside of the old spirit's energy range, allowing me to securely teleport away. "You're not the fastest, huh?" I grinned in relief as the spirit emerged from the cave. It would not catch me in time. 5 minutes later, I was back in the familiar walls of Van Shitong's library. I replanted the ginseng and let it wait for its turn with the other 3 plants. The spiritual realm. One of the spirit villages bordering the cursed areas. On the outskirts of a blooming woodland, a big conflict broke out. The battling factions lacked banners and cohesive formations. There was no adequate formation. It appeared as if 2 waves had clashed. One side contained light, colorful colors, while the other had darker, more sinister shades. The battle had raged for an hour. It was impossible to say who would win or lose just yet. The 2 sides were evenly matched. Among the myriad souls, one person stood out. He constantly flung stone boulders, lightning bolts, water streams, and air currents at the evil spirits. With control over all 4 elements, he was a prominent target for the other spirits. Though many felt they should dread him, it wasn't because of his power. Something about him instilled fear in their hearts. "You've gone too far, Avatar." Aang heard the voice of his new buddy Wang, whom Yo had introduced him to. "I got too caught up in the fight again." Aang bemoaned his tendency to forget everything but his foes during battle. He paid a high price for this 6 months ago. While protecting a town, he pushed too far forward, becoming the target of a concealed ancient spirit. To drive the spirit away, he needed to enter the Avatar state. Years of hard work were wasted, and the terrible ghost appeared to purposefully prolong the conflict. Now he needed to refill Rava's energy at double speed. His body was still experiencing phantom aches, particularly where Yo had smacked him hard. Yo had given him a severe pounding while claiming to be sparring, instilling battle rules in his mind. Aang was mortified. He, a master of all 4 elements, had been completely vanquished by someone wielding only fists and feet. Yo's body let off a green glow. He'd have to ask about it, but only after returning Rava's energy to its previous level. "Thanks, Wang." Aang thanked the monkey spirit. "No worries, it's easy for me," Wang said, expertly handling his extended staff. If Sokka were here, he'd probably say something like, "Boomerang, is that you?" "The more I fight, the more energy I gain." Aang thought cheerfully. He'd probably never realize it, but he'd already become the ideal protagonist for any bending-themed fiction. With all of his chakras open, his stores were nearly impossible to empty. Regeneration simply outperformed even active bending, as Aang was well aware. As a result, he did not hesitate to use large-scale tactics, covering hundreds of meters in fire. Yui Bay, Island Air Temple. Yo, I had an unusual sense of melancholy as I rocked slowly in the rocking rocker. Not even Dria's derriere, which was wrapped in a plant-based, ultra-thin substance, could improve my spirits. She and Daisy stood right in front of me, tending to our garden. They claimed that working manually allowed them to relax and get a fresh understanding of their earthbending abilities. Only Gaia was missing. She was assisting her fellow nature spirits in relocating to safer locations. An hour ago, I attempted to dig in the soil myself, but my mind kept returning to one awful subject. Occasionally, my children's loud, happy voices drew me away from my dark thoughts. They'd been playing in the backyard for about 3 hours, where I had lately constructed them an amazing playground. I could feel proud of myself because Sheikah had shown an interest in it. Ah! I groaned, exhaling heavily once again. I couldn't shake it. My mind kept replaying images of Ko's hideous physique. Last night, I had a nightmare about him. Without a doubt, he was responsible for my bad mood today. For 3.5 years, I had struggled to achieve the next level of firebending. I had tried everything possible. I believed my understanding was adequate, but now I wanted to turn it into mastery. All along, the ominous threat of Ko's recovery loomed over me like a sword of Damocles. I was not concerned about myself, but my enormous family weighed heavily on my thoughts. Who knew what a crazy spirit would do? What if he chose to hurt my loved ones? Anya might live with the girls forever. During one of our chats, I learned that her ancestors had nearly defeated Ko, which was why he was still frightened of golden dragons. Of course, I could shelter everyone under Van Shitong's protection, but is that considered real life? Ko was like a pesky, hazardous insect buzzing in my ear. I wanted to resolve the issue once and for all. Before another irritated sigh could escape, I paused, mouth agape. Something strange happened 10 meters distant. Drea sprang from the ground thanks to visible streams of green Kai. An enormous amount of energy swirled around her, gradually being absorbed by her body. A powerful wind blew up, and gray clouds arose out of nowhere on such a bright day. I paid close attention as Drea's Kai altered. With each passing second, her Kai structure became more intricate, rich, and profound. It dawned on me that my wife was ascending to an ancient level of earthbending. My tight body started to relax. I was thrilled that Drea was becoming stronger. It was as if a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The light show lasted approximately 5 minutes. By then, the clouds had increased, and I sensed a malignant stare pointed at Drea. Still unsure what was going on, I dashed to her aid. Drea, congratulations. I hugged her tenderly. Thank you, she said faintly. I don't feel good, she said, leaning on me. I completely forgot. I said to myself, the human realm despises spirits that lose control, and Drea was emitting ancient spirit energy. Clearly, she had yet to master her new power. Without hesitation, I opened a doorway into the spirit world. I didn't want to know what would happen to Drea if we stayed here any longer. It appeared that we had already been afforded considerable freedom. Daisy, watch the kids. I hastily told my daughter before snatching up Drea and diving into the spatial distortion. I didn't hear Daisy's remark, but she was responsible and would handle it. In less than a second, we were at the entrance to Van Shitong's library in the spirit world. Drea felt better almost immediately, and she was able to stand on her own without my assistance. How are you feeling? I couldn't help but inquire. Like I've been on some wild roller coaster. At first, everything was great. Every part of my body felt euphoric. Then my entire being sensed a life-threatening danger. Now I feel amazing again. I believed her, even though her rushing Kai made me uneasy. Improved control was obviously required. After praising her again on attaining a new level, I pressed her to explain what had transpired. She had just been gardening. Bending has nothing to do with trimming bushes or pulling weeds. I'm not sure, Drea said. I remember seeing a flower wither to give space for another plant to live. A thought crossed my mind. Nature can take as well as give. It's hard to explain, but those words seemed to gather all my knowledge. Then the Kai started filling me. So, it's unclear, maybe I should garden too. What ability did you gain? I knew from the Great Owl's records that reaching an ancient level conferred a certain skill. It is not random, it is determined by your comprehension of your element. For example, a waterbender who preferred ice would obtain an ice-related talent because that is where their expertise lay. Some levels were not shared by the ancients themselves. They can only get a new ability after achieving a critical mass of knowledge. This, in turn, strengthens their source and Kai, giving them even more power. Even Van Shitong did not receive his cool runes straight away. I believe this was his third or fourth ability. Exactly. Watch this. She released a thorny, fang vine that swiftly hooked onto a nearby tree. The tree was gone in less than a second. I had no idea what was going on because everything happened so quickly. Drea had to demonstrate it several times before I understood it. She appeared to relish challenging me to discover the potential of her abilities. Her pride was evident. Its energy absorption. Drea's vines might deplete Kai. The first time, she absorbed the tree's Kai, which was so subtle that I didn't notice. It was an unbelievable ability. While it would not allow her to drain other spirits for growth, it would be quite useful during protracted combat. Try it on me, I offered, eager to experience her vines personally. Are you sure? Drea questioned, frightened. I don't fully control this ability yet. I might hurt you. Don't worry, I'll be fine, I responded, in one of the rare instances when curiosity overcame reason. Okay, then, Drea murmured tentatively, attempting to create the thinnest vine possible. Their strength appeared to be proportionate to their size and thorniness. A tiny green vine quickly crept around my arm. I had to use all of my effort to prevent sinking to my knees. In less than a half second, my Kai reserves were almost drained. My stamina had also dissipated, albeit Drea couldn't have been the cause. Thinking got increasingly difficult. I felt mentally tired. How are you? Drea asked, noticing the changes in my body. Better than ever, I said truthfully, gazing at her in astonishment. Her ability was simply astounding. She could not only drain bending energy, but also stamina and mental strength. Undoubtedly, the efficiency would be significantly lower when compared to other old benders. There were several strategies for dealing with the vines. Nonetheless, despite these limitations, the ability remained extremely potent. Especially considering it was only her first day. In the future, she'd probably extend this energy absorption throughout her entire body, making attacking her worthless. Let me hug you, I whispered, clinging to her in my debilitated state. She didn't mind, gently stroking my head, aware of the stress I felt from my inability to counter Ko. Our wordless declaration of affection was shortly broken by a ripped space. The sensation of something clawing through the air was followed by the appearance of a huge claw, which I dimly recognized. Ancient Kai emanated from the other side, but before Drea and I could tense up, we felt a benevolent energy. So, not an enemy. Soon, the vortex opened sufficiently to allow someone of human stature to travel through. My trusty feline acquaintance stepped quickly toward us. Hi everyone, she said, waving. Last time, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Chitara, she replied, turning her head slightly and smiling at me. I neglected to provide my name because I was so focused on her wonderful movements. Didn't expect to see you so soon, Chitara. I'm Naruto. And this is Drea, one of my wives, I responded, even though I sorely wanted to inquire, who dressed you? Who committed such a sin? Your stunning body shouldn't be hidden. What are you doing here? I asked, not complaining about her company. I've decided to explore the human world with my friend Naruto, she announced firmly. Dad said he'd only let me go if someone came with me. Please say yes, she whispered, making a desperate face. Yes, I said, my voice slightly raspy. The juxtaposition of her cat-like ears squeezed against her head and her begging tone was overwhelming. Clearly, refusal was not an option. Kuro was still keeping the area open with his claw. If my girl gets hurt, the great cat eventually began, his voice thick and frightening. He did not need to continue the phrase, I understood. Dad's always so grumpy. Don't mind him, Chitara muttered nervously, as the tension in the air relaxed. She clearly loathed asking for favors, and staying in her settlement appeared even less enticing. I hope you don't mind if we stay here for a couple of days. Drea needs to get used to her increased power. No problem at all, Chitara said quickly. So, you just became an ancient earthbender? She inquired, directing her gaze to Drea. Call me Drea, she smirked, casting wicked looks at me. She noticed I was interested in this cat-like female and began asking Chitara to better understand her nature. She was not about to let just anyone into their family. Cat-like spirit settlement, several hours earlier. Father, let me go to the human world. Chitara had been bringing up this matter for days. From what I know, it's much safer than the spirit world. Plus, my new friend lives there, and he's quite strong too. Chitara confessed to herself that she was more eager to meet her new friend, whose name she'd forgotten to ask. That damn brat has my only daughter wrapped around his finger. Kuro, the healthy black cat, cursed. But it's true, She'll be safer there. Another wave of black spirits was approaching their encampment. Knowing his daughter, she would certainly fight. And he couldn't always protect her, especially if someone with his strength assaulted them. Fine, I'll allow it, he said, interrupting her vows of good behavior. Thank you so much, father. Chitara snuggled against Kuro's velvety belly, making him purr. In the human world, you can't walk around naked. Take clothes from your second mother. Kuro didn't understand people well, but he deeply resented how that half-spirit had nearly licked his daughter's body. Wait, if the clothes are ready, does that mean you've already decided to let me go? Did you think your little escape would go unpunished? He mocked, reminding her of the day when dark spirits almost captured her. But if I hadn't escaped, I wouldn't have met my new friend. Chitara reasoned, choosing not to press her father any further. Air Temple Island. 10 minutes after Yo and Drea departed, a strange calm blanketed the playground, in stark contrast to the typical cacophony of children laughing and chatting. It appeared the girls had discovered something more exciting to do. The phrase says, if you don't hear a child, they're definitely up to something. Dad and Mom aren't home, and little Daisy isn't either. Now is our chance, Hina muttered, her voice slightly eager. She was always the brain of any expedition. We need to act. Kushi, her mischievous sidekick, agreed. I'm not sure. I don't want to upset Mom and Dad, Tomoko answered nervously. She didn't always agree with her sister's outlandish notions. I'll check the house, Kushi, you take the garden, and Tomoko, you handle the rest, Hina announced, her leadership skills coming through. Something about her voice made you want to listen. Tomoko didn't hesitate long. She, too, had an adventurous streak, which she often attempted to suppress. Daisy could clearly see and hear the girls' comments and actions, which was unfortunate for them. The island was covered in hidden, watching, and listening plants, allowing Yo, Gaia, Drea, and Daisy to keep an eye on the children. If the females had been more proficient with their kai, they could have seen the plants. However, their enthusiasm greatly outweighed their control and comprehension of their bending skills. They had only lately started proper training. Only one individual was aware of the complete surveillance setup. Shika, as a half-spirit, half-human, was one step ahead of her sisters. Unfortunately for the females, Shika's talents did not impede her at all. She assumed everyone was aware of her link to the spirit realm. Despite her lack of social skills and erratic behavior, her father adored her. Father's too protective. Let them see the world as it is, and I'll keep an eye on them, Daisy thought to herself, well aware of her sister's plan. Kushi strolled right past her, unknowingly, because the difference in their bending skills and abilities was too large. 15 minutes later, the conspirators reconvened, their eyes glittering as they clutched a map of adjacent areas and decided which city to visit. Tianhai is too dangerous. We might run into our parents' acquaintances. Let's choose Hinai. It's only 2 hours away by boat, they said. However, another dilemma arose. How do we get there? I know someone who can help us, Tomoko said, smiling. She approached the swings where Shika had been playing, planning how to arouse her sister's attention. Shika, Tomoko welcomed her cordially. Want to join us on a little adventure? Shika, indifferent, continued to eat her fruit. Tomoko remained undeterred and continued with her scheduled monologue. Shika smoothly stepped off the swings without saying anything, citing the abundance of food shops in Hinai. Tomoko merely took her hand and guided her to the others. Everyone had flaws, and Shika never concealed hers. Soon, they arrived at the pier, where Drea's rarely seen plant ship was missing. It was now the size of a massive battleship, capable of crushing hundreds of Fire Nation vessels. Drea continued to work on her earthbending creature, giving it a pseudo-consciousness that enabled it to collect flora samples for self-improvement. Most of the time, the semi-sentient ship navigated the oceans and depths. The ship's not here, Kushi stated the obvious. She had only seen it twice in her life, so they hadn't expected it. Furthermore, it was unlikely to follow their directions. Shika, you know what to do. The girl with little, charming horns finished her apple in one breath and tossed the seeds nearby. A minute later, a finely built boat appeared where the seeds had landed. It was no match for Drea's ship, but it would do the job flawlessly. The four were ecstatic from the moment they boarded. 3 of them recognized that this was a true adventure, no adults, just them and the world. The 4th anticipated eating at every street stand, as well as watching food being cooked in front of her. Hina, did you bring the coins? Got it all. Hina yanked out a little but weighty sack containing something metallic and jingling. Money was always visible at home, why hide it when only the family was on the island? Hina then exhibited her waterbending abilities, which were astounding given her age. The boat sped forward, cutting through the sea. After half an hour, her enthusiasm ran out, and Tomoko took over. She dipped her palm into the water, causing swirling air currents to push the boat just as quickly. Daisy followed, more impressed by her younger sister's resourcefulness. Soon, the girls were strolling across the city, inspecting every building and shop. It wasn't their first outing, but this one seemed different. They were entirely independent, like genuine adults. Hinai was not a tourist destination, it was mostly a business city. Its proximity to Tianhai made it a trading hub, boosting its wealth. Other adjacent cities acted as rest points for passengers en route to the future world center. If anyone noticed the girls, it was because of Shika's unusual looks. Nobody cared to question why they were alone. The girls were well dressed, so people assumed they were with their parents. Surprisingly, crime was far lower in cities surrounding Tianhai. Perhaps gangs and criminals favored the best hunting grounds, but these quieter neighborhoods felt like easier targets. Young lady, you've given way too much, the vendor said, eyes wide, as Shika handed him a gold coin, almost a week's worth of earnings. I want it all, Shika said, gesturing towards the piles of raw meat. All right, the skewers vendor said, a bit flustered. Maybe she has a big family. But the truth was, he just couldn't grill fast enough to satisfy the young customer's huge appetite. The juicy meat vanished into her stomach in no time at all. Take it all, Shika said, her serious expression and commanding tone making her sisters feel a bit uneasy. It felt like they had let loose a greedy beast. For the next hour, Tomoko, Hina, and Kushi just spent their time carrying treats for Shika. They were already wishing they hadn't brought her along. Luckily, even Shika knew when to draw the line. Over the next few hours, they wandered through the shops without a care in the world. Hina and Kushi hung out at the weapons store for an hour, checking out and trying out all the different items. The poor clerk was at a loss for words, fully aware of just how valuable the girls' seemingly ordinary clothing was. He quickly picked up on their noble background. They happily went along with Tomoko's passion for beautiful clothes, spending another hour and a half trying on different outfits. The sun's going down soon, Tomoko said with a smile, wrapping her arms around a big bag full of dresses. That was a blast, but I think it's time to head home, Kushi sighed, feeling a bit worn out. They decided to leave their boat tucked away in a little forest outside the city, steering clear of the bustling port where their quirky crew could draw some unwanted eyes. As they made their way further into the forest, Shika's little nose picked up on something intriguing. Someone's firebending fish, she said. By their boat, there was a group cooking up some fish. Before long, the newcomers spotted the girls. Jin, one guy, looking like your classic tough guy, elbowed his buddy. His clothes were a bit tattered, and his sword seemed to have seen better days. Check out those girls. What are you talking about? What girls in the forest? But when he turned, his jaw just dropped. He suddenly had this strangely friendly look on his face. Kids, what are you all doing here? He looked them over with a curious gaze. For sure, he's loaded. We could ask for a ransom, his accomplice said with a grin. How about we save one for ourselves? Sound good? Quiet down, you're going to scare them, the other whispered. You know, dirty, smelly bodies and those unintelligent faces. Hina started to list off. Enough to assume you're bandits. It might have been expected to sound scared, but that definitely wasn't the case when it came from Naruto's kids. They're not scared of us, one complained. The fish, it's going to burn, a voice called out from behind them, causing them to jump. Shika sat by the fire, flipping the fish with a relaxed vibe. How did you end up here? The bandits exclaimed together, but their rough language made it hard for the girls to grasp the meaning. Get ready, villains. Kushi Earthbender is here to take you down. One girl was excited to face off against real bandits. Save one for me, Hina called out, sending a huge wave of water to knock one bandit aside. Her motto could easily be, the bigger the move, the cooler it is. Kushi launched the other into the air with a stone pillar that shot up from the ground. They're just so weak, she complained. It didn't even last 2 hits, Kushi sighed. The 2 down and out souls, already worn down by life, now drifted down to the ocean floor. Lao and Roku's efforts to tackle crime have made a lot of criminals think twice about stepping foot in the cities. What was up with them not resurfacing? He couldn't do anything. Kushi had broken his arm and hurt his spine. Even if he was fine, he still wouldn't have had a shot. Daisy didn't like the way they had looked at her sisters, so she knew their souls would soon be joining the spirit world. The fast-growing seaweed seemed almost alive, making sure the bandits had no chance of a good outcome. Once the girls wrapped up a little feast thanks to the bandits, they got ready to make their way home. Just as they were about to hop on the boat, Hina and Kushi found themselves lifted into the air, almost like playful little kittens getting into mischief. Daisy thought to herself, they didn't pick up anything useful today, as she looked at the 3 pairs of eager eyes staring back at her. The 4th pair seemed to be more focused on a crab that was hanging out nearby. Oh, hey, Daisy. So glad you showed up. We were just having fun at home and somehow found ourselves here. Hina said, keeping a straight face. I caught your chat when you were at home, Daisy said. If she were completely human, you could almost see a vein popping on her forehead. Heh. Hina chuckled a bit awkwardly. I had a feeling it wouldn't be a walk in the park. After a 30-minute talk about what they did wrong, Daisy decided to take some serious action. I guess I'll have to send you home a bit earlier, she said with a sigh, pretending to be reluctant. We don't want to go home. Tomoko, Kushi, and Hina exclaimed together. We'll follow Sister Daisy, they said together. The girls were mostly hanging out somewhere else. Tomoko made her way back to the Fire Nation, where her caring mom Ursa and her doting sister Azula were excitedly waiting for her. Hina made her way back to the North Pole, right into the welcoming arms of Kai, Katara, and Yui. Shizuka, Suki, Jun, and Toph were all looking forward to Kushi's arrival. They only made trips to Air Temple Island during their so-called vacations, and they were excited about it. All of Naruto's daughters had become good friends, so everyone was on board with their hangouts. Another reason they might be so excited could be that they don't have many peers at home. Everyone here was the same age, and there was no need to put on a show. Living in the palace came with its own set of rules, you know. Have you heard about the Island Air Temple? We had to head back without Drea. It looks like mastering her Kai is going to take a bit longer than she thought. Without that, she couldn't go to the human realm. It was just too risky to put her life in danger. It looks like Drea might be hanging out in the spirit realm for about 1 to 2 months, based on some rough estimates. That way, even the tiniest bursts of ancient energy wouldn't escape her body without her say-so anymore. Right now, Drea is lending a hand to Gaia as she helps other nature spirits move to a safer place. When Chitara and I walked into the house, we immediately noticed my little girls looking pretty down as they swept the floors, wiped the windows, and tidied up the place. Dad, Daddy, they shouted, dropping the mop, broom, and dustpan the moment they spotted me. All 4 of my daughters jumped into my arms, and it felt so natural to embrace them all. The girls believed I'd back them up and put a stop to Daisy's discipline, but that didn't happen. This time, I decided to step back and let my eldest daughter handle things on her own because I was frustrated by their careless actions. If it weren't for their bending skills, things might have turned out a lot worse. What do you think would have happened if Daisy hadn't been around? What would happen if they came across a tough, seasoned bender? I couldn't help but think about all the what-ifs, but in the end, it came down to one thing. I had definitely spoiled the girls too much. That needed to change right away. I was a bit late to worry about my daughter's safety, but that didn't hold me back from getting involved in the disciplinary moment. I get that kids often zone out during their parents' talks, but I was hoping something would stick in their little minds. Chitara didn't have to spend much time on parental duties, so she was never alone and always had something to keep her busy. I have to give a shout out to Daisy for keeping her company with another spirit while I was tied up. At first, Chitara acted just like a regular cat. She walked around her new surroundings with a bit of tension, taking her time to check everything out. Her adorable little nose kept sniffing around, picking up on all the new scents of energy that filled the whole house. It felt like I was witnessing a tiny cat figuring out its new digs on the very first day. Everything feels strange, Chitara said one evening, her eyes sparkling as she glanced at Tianhai. The city's lights gently welcomed us, offering a stunning view that you could easily lose yourself in for hours. Next week, we're heading to Tianhai, I said, picking up on what she wanted. But you know, someone will need to hide some of those non-human traits by then, I said, my hand naturally moving to her ear and giving it a gentle stroke. No one had stepped into her personal space like that before, at least not so confidently. Once she figures out who her dad is, everything just clicks into place. Chitara didn't pull away from my touch, she might have just been unsure of how to respond. Well, this was all new to her. It was pretty funny watching her shyly turn away when her body let out those little purring, vibrating sounds without her even trying. I think father brought home a new mommy, I heard Tomoko say softly. She and the rest of the group enjoyed watching Chitara and me. We should let all the other moms know. Kushi exclaimed. I thought you'd always be on dad's side. After around 20 minutes, they started to lose interest in what they thought was our pretty boring interaction. The vibe felt a lot more personal. Honestly, I found myself relaxing too, not even realizing that I was now gently stroking not just her ears but also her back. Naya, Chitara exclaimed as my hand glided along the length of her tail. No worries, I get it. With her back arched elegantly and her ears perked up, it felt like it wasn't just her ears that were tuned in. Looks like I rushed things a bit, I sighed, glancing at Chitara as she hurried toward the house, a mix of embarrassment and confusion on her face. The little cat isn't quite used to all the cuddles and love just yet. Eventually, Chitara became less responsive to my touches. And she got what they were saying. That made it more fun, since my bold moves were welcomed with open arms. I'm interested in finding out more about Chitara's bending skills. She was all about pure lightning, and she made a name for herself with it. Aside from the usual but handy techniques I had come across in other spirits of the same element, this feisty little cat had some truly special skills to show off. I enjoyed the technique she used to boost her speed. When I saw the yellow lightning wrapping around her, it instantly reminded me of the lightning armor technique from the 3rd and 4th Raikage in Naruto. Right now, Chitara's technique just doesn't stack up, since it mainly boosts speed and reaction time. We could look into making it better later on, not just for speed but for other things as well. Even without that, mastering the technique was definitely worthwhile. The technique was quite challenging. So, at first, we didn't have a proper source of lightning, so we had to use the same techniques as other benders to get it. Next up, the lightning needed to be directed through certain pathways at different speeds, which made things a bit more complicated. It took me a whole 2 minutes to finish these 2 stages, which feels like a luxury I just can't afford in a life or death situation. Since my physical and energy bodies are connected, that lightning energy could easily hurt me. Luckily, my body's overall toughness definitely goes beyond what you'd expect. If my chakras weren't open, I'd probably be limping around or taking a break from using my legs for a bit. This technique isn't for just anyone who bends. After all, spirits don't have muscles, tendons, or ligaments to think about. I was able to cut down the activation time of the lightning armor quite a bit over time. The speed I get from this technique is way better than what I can manage just by cutting down on air resistance. Maybe one day, this technique will come in handy and save my life. I was feeling good, so I thought I'd treat Chitara to some extra petting. But this time, I didn't just stop at her back, tail, and ears. My fingers gently explored her moderately firm belly, sometimes gliding down to her toned legs. For a few days now, she's been going without her clothes, claiming they were just too restrictive for her. Plus, her dad wouldn't let her go without clothes unless there were strangers around. In her view, it seemed like everyone on this island had already turned into her friend. So, everything was fine. Meow. Chitara purred softly, nuzzling against me. Wow, taming is taking off, I thought, noticing the way Chitara was looking at me. But I wouldn't cross that final line without the consent of my wives, women, and girls, for sure. I value their opinion way too much to let a moment of impulse mess things up. I'm pretty sure everyone is going to like Chitara. She's definitely not the kind to play any games. One great thing is her openness to polygamy. In her situation, it's shaped by the reality that her dad has a few long-term partners as well. So, it looks like Kuro came up with a pretty unique solution to the low spirit birth rates. I'll share my energy with a bunch of women. Who knows, maybe something will click. You can't say his method is bad, and the evidence is right here next to me. Anya came back after a week and pretty much crashed right away. Right now, she's in that dragon maturation phase, which means she'll be snoozing a lot for the next few years. This way, she gathers the energy she needs to boost all her qualities. Tianhai, evening. Have you heard of Avatar Yangshan Street? Have you heard of the bar called Cheap Booze? A wooden sign was hanging on the entrance door of the bar, letting everyone know that it was closed for the day. Right behind that thin iron door, there was this awful smell of booze. There were broken bottles of all kinds scattered across the floor. There were even more behind the bar counter, where a whole cabinet, once filled to the brim with the drinks that some wanted, had been knocked over. Injured bodies were spread out all over the place. Some folks had just a few bruises, but one poor guy took a hit and seemed to have snapped his neck. Just 2 guys were on their feet, their faces covered by masks that kept anyone from figuring out who they were. One of them was now roughly pushing someone's face down against the wooden floor of the bar. The victim's face was covered in bruises, and his pricey suit was wrecked. At that moment, even the regulars at the bar wouldn't have recognized the owner, who was also a mid-level drug dealer. So, it looks like my new subordinate has got the hang of things, huh? The masked man said with a friendly smile, gripping the victim by his long hair. Ka kha, the man coughed, spitting out the blood that had gathered in his mouth. I get it all now. Why is it that in this city, folks only seem to pay attention after they've been knocked around a bit? We've got some business to take care of, the other masked man said casually. We'll have someone reach out to you, he said to the man who was lying in his own bodily fluids. And it's in your best interest not to go against us. His voice was still cold, but this time, the bar owner's heart felt like it was being tightly squeezed. The shadowy part of the city is about to see some big changes, the bar owner mused, his gaze lingering on the unknown men as they faded into the night. Those Kai blockers, he exclaimed, gingerly feeling his broken ribs. Just past the bar, 2 masked figures slipped away into the night, having taken care of a whole crowd in just a few minutes. Looks like another gang's got us covered, the man said, stretching out and finally dropping the mask he was hiding behind. A young man with classic Southern Earth Kingdom features gazed out at the world, missing his accessory. Leader, can I ask why it's always me dealing with the shadow business? He finally said, your Kai blocking is definitely going to keep those bandits' evil intentions in check, Yakin said, his tone just as icy. You know deep down that other tasks just aren't your thing. Remember that incident from a year ago? Your true colors are already on the authorities' radar, he reminded Bakir about when he took out a couple of benders. They were able to label it as self-defense, but given his history, it's hard to see him landing a job as a government official anytime soon. Yakin has some other team members who are a better fit for official roles, both in their way of thinking and their skills. Another guy in similar clothes and a mask showed up quietly. By nightfall, we'll have all the gang formations on our hook. That's great, Yakin said with a genuine smile. Before long, people who thought like him would not just have a grip on the darker side of the market, but they'd also have plenty of connections within the government. Before long, their organization would start popping up in other countries too. Thanks to the dark particles of Vachu's energy, everyone just went along with Yakin being their leader. He stood out from the rest with his strength, smarts, and charm. But let's not forget, a big part of his success came from having the largest share of Vachu. Yakin, Bakir started, a bit unsure. Can you actually get rid of this curse for me? He said, putting extra emphasis on the last word with a lot of disdain. No need to stress, buddy, Yakin said, giving his shoulder a reassuring pat. Once we hit our big goal, I'll be taking your Kai blocking. I trust you, he would think. His mind has been soaked in Vachu's energy for quite a while. How about we make sure everyone has the same chances? Yakin said, stroking his chin as he thought. Equalizers, he said, rolling the word around in his mouth. It works perfectly for us. So, our organization's name has come up, and it captures what we're all about, but you know, everything has its moment. We're just not quite ready to help people see things differently yet. Just a quick reminder about the meeting with Zion Su tomorrow. She seems interested in our ideas, which could open up some great financial opportunities for us. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, Be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.